Let us begin, shall we?
Yeah.
So good. So, how are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the General Geekery Podcast, the podcast where we geek out about all the things we love to geek out about with no remorse, no regrets, and with all the enthusiasm in the world. I'm getting more grandiose with that introduction by the day. I wonder how much more flamboyant I can actually go with it, but that's a test for another time.
I can see you getting way more flamboyant. You're at an 8 right now. I anticipate you could get to a 15, so let's work on that.
A 15 out of 10.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I didn't say it was out of 10, but sure, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just assuming just based on that, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
As always, this is Donald Kaczynski, and with me as always, the sharp and witty Hannah Kubiak.
Hello.
And, today, it's a very interesting thing to talk about, because, I was actually inspired by this with the announcement with, Voices Found Repertory announcing their latest, read-in session over Twitch. Check them out, May 24th, around brunch time. They're going to be doing a reading of The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yep, I'm actually in that.
Oh, fun!
Mm-hmm.
Very fun. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be great.
Yes. So with that announcement, and it really started to make me think. We're about 2 months in with the social distancing idea, and with Wisconsin being the stay-at-home order, basically shutting down a lot of non-essential businesses. The theater has obviously taken a hit from that early on.
Yes, it has.
But I've heard several reports around the world, not exactly the U.S., but like other places are like starting to finally open up because things are becoming a little more clearer.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a bit to go, but still, it's a hope. So, as things start slowly building back up to more normalcy of what happened before this entire pandemic hit,
yeah,
where does theater go from here? Because we had an entire episode where we talked about like why theater is so important. Definitely check that out if you guys haven't done so already. I think it was episode 19, I want to say. Can't remember off the top of my head.
Nope, neither can I.
But me and Hannah, we had a long discussion about like why theater means so much to us as both theater goers and as actors. So obviously, like the theater community and theater as a whole means a lot to us, a definite lot to us. So first we should probably take a look at like how theaters have basically adapted to this entire pandemic first before we discuss this. So, have you checked out any shows through streaming services or anything like that ever since this started? Because I know a couple of theaters were streaming some of their past works.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to catch any of that. I don't know. I live simply, so I try to not be, I'm not on like Facebook, for instance, with a like social media and stuff. I try to kind of limit that just because it drives you insane sometimes if there's too much input, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Because I remember when all of this started, there were several different theater companies. I remember, well, a couple local theater companies, even a couple of our friends over at Voices Found Rep was sharing this, that a lot of big name companies were releasing for the first month of like when the entire world was on lockdown, past works of a lot of their shows, including, I think, maybe Globe Theater with the National Shakespeare Company.
Oh, okay.
I could be mistaken about that, but for some reason that just sounds familiar. And several different companies have also been doing I think they've been doing stagings of shows just without an audience and just with cameras to broadcast it.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I think some have done live broadcasts.
Wow. You know, my roommate and I actually, I don't know if this was part of it, but we watched a version of the A Midsummer Night's Dream that was being performed at the Globe. I think it was a past performance, but I don't know if they put it up specifically for the current situation that we're in. But we've definitely been more able to consume media these days, I would think.
Right. So
I just finished binging Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so I don't know where to go now.
we will reach out for the next branch whenever we get the chance.
Mm-hmm.
But since like all these different like theaters have switched to streaming services for the current pandemic, it got me thinking. For some reason, should theater go more the route of streaming their some of their performances for a more general viewership, or when everything returns to normalcy, should it be remained at the status quo of pay the ticket, go to see the show whenever you get the chance?
I feel like going out to see a show is an experience in itself. It's kind of you go to see the show, yes, but it's also sort of a community experience, like to interact with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you laugh together, you know, a lot of my favorite stories of stuff that happens in theater is stuff that happened in the audience. Like I remember being in a show one time where there was this line that somebody said that was like dun dun dun, and just from the darkness of the audience, I heard somebody just like instinctively, as though she forgot where she was like, "Oh shit, he's gonna kill her," or something like that. And that's just like, yeah. Or when we're doing a comedy and Donald, we can hear you laughing. That is part of the community of theater.
Oh,
you know?
Yep.
So I would prefer that we get back to selling tickets, having people come to be in the theater space, because that's what makes it different from a movie, is that the people are actually there, you know, and that it's live. I
do agree with that. I genuinely do agree with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a big thing. Like I miss is like being part of it, like just being part of an audience, just like watching and just
Mm-hmm.
reacting like together. It's part of an entire community experience.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side, unfortunately, there are people that don't want to actually go see that. And we live in a more digital age where, like, as you said, like we have so much media that just basically the power of our fingertips now.
Yeah. Yeah. People can get a little bit lazy, you know?
True.
Like I can get lazy. I can say to myself, "Oh, like my friend is in this show and I want to go and see it," and then I never do.
Oof.
And you know, well, sometimes in the past couple of years, that's been because of money, but now I don't have that excuse because I have a big girl job. So, a couple of months before all this happened, all the quarantine and all that stuff, I was making an effort to go and see shows. Like if a friend of mine was in a show and they asked me to come, and I said I would, and I was available, I would go.
Yeah, me as well. Ever since I started my most recent job when I was working with Valentine Coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and I started getting that more, I was like, I'm at a steady point in my life where I can actually go out and see shows, and I don't have to worry too much about conserving money for just tickets.
Which is exactly where you should be in your late 20s, I feel like.
Yeah, mid-late 20s, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll go see the shows that I want to see, like, and
Mm-hmm.
and after that, I actually managed to see a show at my old college as well, and I got to reconnect with some old professors and colleagues and everything like that. And
Yeah.
it's an entire community like thing.
Yeah.
But for also another reason, because of this pandemic, it also made me think about several things that happened before the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, like, everybody does a lot of streaming with a lot of different mediums. People stream films, themselves playing video games and things like that. And in recent years, some theater companies have actually gone to the extent of either streaming some of their performances or recording some of their performances in order to be viewed later by a general audience.
Right.
I think the biggest example of this is whenever a Shakespeare performance is billed by a well-known actor, like
Right.
when Benedict Cumberbatch did Hamlet a few years back, and one of the performances was recorded and it was being shown in theaters.
Yep. Or when Sir Ian McKellen was in King Lear.
Yes, exact same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, you're reacting to the same thing that the audience from that night was reacting to, and it's a great experience when you want to be able to see something that you're not able to see in person because of either travel distance or things like that, especially when it comes to a big name.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking when I was thinking about this topic. I'm like, is it necessary?
No. It's not necessary to record something. Like, I've definitely watched videos of plays that I went to see. Like my first show that I ever directed in college, I filmed it, and going back to watch it, like, first of all, the quality is not great because I basically just snuck up there and put my laptop on this little shelf above the center aisle, and it's hard to hear what people are saying. It looks cool, but it's not the same as actually being there, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Like, I do agree with you on that. I remember back in college, we had one person in the theater department that did a recording of like every single show that she was a part of, and I remember rewatching some of those, and I remember, like, she had a good quality camera that she was recording it with, but I think it was basically like the acoustics of the performance spaces themselves that just did not translate well to camera.
Right.
So obviously, like, a lot more care has to be given into performances like that. Obviously, some actors need to be outfitted with like microphones and things like that, and like it's an entire technical prospect that starts getting in the way of the performance itself.
Yeah.
For me, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I prefer a good old-fashioned night at the theater, you know.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
So
But
what's the difference between a play and a movie? Like, they're different experiences, and no one of them is better.
I wouldn't say one of them is better. It's just it's almost like trying to choose, for me as a person who loves caffeine, trying to choose. But when you're trying to choose between whether you prefer to go to a film or prefer to go to a play, it's almost, for me as a caffeine addict, it's almost trying to choose whether you want tea for the day or whether you want coffee for the day.
Right. They're both good.
They're both good. You really like them a lot. It just depends on what you're feeling like that day.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like, I don't know what it is, but whenever something has to be put onto film, there needs to be more spectacle and grandeur to it for some reason.
Yeah, like even in filmed theater productions that I've watched, they have some cuts, they have close-ups, they have stuff like that. like things from different angles. So even if you're filming a theatrical production, you make it like it's a movie, and some plays on stage lend themselves to that better than others.
Yeah, yeah, that is definitely true. I think one of the biggest examples of that, where that actually really worked in its benefit, was when I think when David Tennant and Catherine Tate did Benedict and Beatrice from Much Ado.
Oh man.
Like
I haven't seen that, but that is such a great combination. Did I just say combination?
I think so, but I know what you meant, and honestly, yes, it is. I think it's like one of my I think it was one of my favorite productions of Much Ado I saw. Just saw. Not in person, because if we're talking in person, that's a different category entirely.
Yeah.
I saw Much Ado at the American Players Theater, and that one was a really good one. That one was a really good one when I went to go see that a couple of years back. So
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, there's a definite like plays being broadcast stream-wise or film-wise, it's a different area all on its own. Like it's kind of like the middle circle of the difference between a play and a film. Like it's taking the best of both worlds, but it doesn't always mesh together as well as the two elements separate. Sometimes it does work. Most of the time, though, it's kind of rough. It's very, very rough. Like I remember doing this for back when I was in college. I was doing a directing scene for one of my finals, and I remember trying to look up past performances of like this specific play, and like I saw some parts of like the original performance when it was done, and then I saw some you know, sometimes when you go online to look up like acting material and things like that, and somehow you just find like stage scenes of shows from like a high school or things like that, and you're just
I had a whole when I was in Hamlet, the guy who played Hamlet across from me, Brandon, every day he was sending me another horrible version of the nunnery scene that they did at some school. And I was like, yep, this makes me feel really good about the way that we do the scene. Like I feel confident now because it's been done badly so many times. There was even one where it was like a rock opera and they did a song.
Oh my, I could just imagine, and just like rock opera lyrics, get thee to a nunnery.
Yeah, and she had this little thing where she tries to give the tokens back to him, and she's like, take these again. And like, it was very dramatic, but also just laughable.
If I was oh my god, if I was watching that, I'm like, you don't need to fuse together Shakespeare and Phantom of the Opera. Just stop.
No.
Just stop.
If I find it again, I could send you the link if people want to watch it.
I kind of do want to see it. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I don't want to see it, but I have to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like watching a Mystery Science Theater movie.
Right.
Because you're like, I just want to have had this experience.
Exactly.
Your life will forever be changed after you see the rock opera nunnery scene.
Yeah. So with that in mind, obviously, I labeled some already. So there are obvious advantages to seeing a show in person as opposed to like watching it over like a stream or watching a re-recording or anything like that. We've listed some in the moment reactions and just general community feel, but what are some other advantages that live theater has over like a broadcast production of a show?
the opportunity for an audience member to accidentally get squirted with a squib full of fake blood, that can be a major draw for the right kind of audience.
Are you referring to Mackers?
Yeah, when we did Mackers, Andrew Kelly, who was one of our guests on this podcast, he told me, he's like, yes, I sat in the front row and I only got one splash of blood on my shoe. I was very disappointed. And I was like, I'm so sorry, man. I mean, I tried to aim for you at the beginning when I got stabbed, but
You know, honestly, you would expect a disappointment the other way around, but considering this is Andrew Kelly we're talking about, I'm like,
Yep.
like that totally fits him. That fits him to a T. But yeah, it's like those with a live audience, you get those like small little like moments of like some things happening. Like sometimes, like for us as actors in a show, like especially when we're performing Shakespeare, if we just did the same thing like day in, day out, we would tire of it quickly.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big thing that a lot of people that work on Broadway and these like long productions that span for months on end are like,
oh man,
like
yeah.
I know they have like a big problem with that sometimes, is that like they're just doing it like robotically, almost like clockwork. And sometimes you gotta find new stuff. You gotta try something new. So like, when you're working in a rehearsal and then you ask your director, like, can we try it like this? Can I try it like that? And with that, you can have a completely same audience on two different nights and have a scene that plays out the same way, except your actors can twist it a little bit differently, just in terms of movement, in terms of just tone of dialogue, and it can change the experience.
Yeah. Oh, I have a story. This is actually from the same play, from the nunnery scene.
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay. So, when we blocked that scene, we kind of did it organically, where our director just said, okay, just move where you think that you would move. And we're like, okay, cool. And then we sort of created some blocking out of that. And we usually, what would happen was that, because the director wanted there to be a kiss somewhere in the scene. And so when we rehearsed it, she was like, she's like, okay, Hamlet, sometime during this scene, make it happen. So I didn't know when that was going to happen. And like, he picked a spot or whatever. But then one day when we were doing a performance with the show, and I was feeling adventurous. And so long before where he would usually kiss me, I kissed him, and it changed the entire scene.
Oh.
It was like there was this moment where we were both just kind of standing there looking at each other, or like, I don't even know what we're supposed to do now. I forgot.
I could just imagine you doing that, like, after your line of dialogue, and then immediately after it happens is when Hamlet automatically says, get thee to a nunnery.
I think it was right before he asks, where's your father?
Oh, okay, all right, that's actually...
He's like, wait a minute, wait, where's your father?
That's actually better timing. That's actually better timing.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. For those that don't understand what we're talking about, go read Hamlet or go watch a production of Hamlet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Preferably live, but there are so many different interpretations of Hamlet. They exist out there. Go find some good ones.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, it's like those small moments that happen during a live production where things happen. You don't get that same kind of experience when you do it when you watch it over a thing. This is actually another one. This is a story from myself as an audience member when I was in college. There was a production. There was like a comedy production called Laughingstock. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So basically, the entire plot of this entire show is that it's basically follows the season of a community theater company operating out of a barn in like Maine or something like that. And it just shows them doing all these just doing these productions and the backstage work, there was a moment in the play where they do like a production, like a weird production of Dracula, where obviously in the context of the show, like the performance everything goes wrong in the performance, and and like several different things happen, like a cross starts burning when it's not earlier than it's supposed to, and things like that. And everything like that. I originally read the script and I saw the performance on opening night. So the next week, so I'm like, that's brilliant. And so I brought my family along because I was like, you guys have to see this. You're gonna have a fun time.
Yeah.
And when I was watching the show, like several different things happened. Like there was actually a couple of malfunctions during those moments on set when the cross never burned at all. Like they weren't able to get the cross to burn. I'm like, this is great. This is actually great.
Yeah. Those are sometimes the most memorable shows when something goes awry.
Mm-hmm.
Or something's off, because then you have to improvise and it's organic and stuff, and if it works, and then you have a story, just like this crazy thing happened. Like when I was in Mackers, and I was Lennox, who was basically like a soldier, and there was this scene where the porter has this giant bottle of wine, like it was water in a wine bottle basically, and while she was doing her whole speech, she was spewing it all over the place, and she put it down on the table and it fell over and it spilled everywhere. And for whatever reason, when I came in for this little scene that me and this other guy and she had on the stage, I for some reason decided I was gonna like boost myself up and sit on the table just for that night. And as I sat down, like my butt was completely soaked immediately. And so we were doing the scene, and I'm just, trying to get my wet pants out of my crotch or whatever, and then we go off stage. And the next scene that I have to stand with my back to the entire audience, because I'm just like a messenger. I come in and I'm like, all this stuff happened and there was war and battle and bloodshed. But so I had to go in there, and I was doing this whole long monologue, and it was more about other people's reactions to what I was saying than me. So I was just standing there with my back to the audience, just with this wet butt. Like
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
The wonders of live theater, guys. Like you
Yep.
And like you can
start looking at you like, is this a choice? Is this character supposed to be like drunken and incontinent or what?
like those, like the little moments like are just so good. Like the little like moments of like happenstance that just happen for no reason, and the actors and the audience all react to it and just play along with it. Like those are moments of magic that you can't really replicate. Like you can see it happen over like a live stream of a show, and you can get a little bit of a reaction to it, but you can't. But you don't get as much impact as if you were there live. And even then, during like a screening, during like a screening production where like the production's already recorded, like everything's part of it's been edited in post, so they can cut stuff like that out, which honestly kind of takes that magic away from it.
Yeah.
Like it's not always about like, it's not always just about the show, the story itself in the show or things like that. It's sometimes like the moments that, like the little moments, like I've mentioned it before on the podcast, the little moments can mean so much to the greater whole. And like those little happy accidents, like accidentally sliding in when you're sliding in on a peel when you're trying to come in all dramatic, like that's an entire story that happened during one of my acting classes and things like that. Or accidentally or getting your butt wet and trying to keep your back to the audience because you're trying to do all this and the audience reacting to it. Or during a scene where everything is supposed to go wrong in context of the show, but everything actually goes wrong in real life.
Yep. Yeah. Those are always a trip.
Yeah, and like things like that mean so much. Like people can react to it in different ways, But that's the magic of watching theater live.
Yep.
Is that it's an experience that you all can like react to together, which is where that sense of community comes in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest advantages that like theater has is with that. Also, like another big thing that people can react with that is especially like after show is like when you get a chance to like personally like as an audience member, when you get to personally like congratulate like those that worked on the performance. Like, especially in our like theater sense, how many people that we've had like after show like congratulate us on an entire production throughout for all the cast.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm one of those actors who I like to take my bow and then go to the dressing room and then try and sneak out. Like
that's I can totally understand that, but I'm also speaking of this as like seeing as how like we work with VFR, and VFR is very much like integrated into like the greater Milwaukee community theater community now.
Yeah.
Like in its 5 years of existence, like 4 or 5 years of existence now, but even still like having all this community feedback to us and becoming part of us, and even like our post-show ritual of rubbing our hands together and slapping our thighs going, that's us.
Yep.
Like, it's those moments.
Yeah.
Like the building of a community is like important for theater. Very important for theater.
I guess I should drag myself out and say hello to the people who came to see the show.
I remember you were kind of a little bit nervous of that at times when we were doing Titus Andronicus, and you sometimes had to give the post show.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The first time I had to do the post show, I basically didn't say anything. I kept on just turning around and saying, "What was that thing I was supposed to say?" Like it was a complete mess. I was like, "Well, now you can see why I'm the director and I wasn't acting in this thing." Like. Because this lady can't string two sentences together.
I think I even remember at one point I even asked you. I'm like, do you want help during this? I can help you out if you want.
Mm-hmm.
I actually remember that, and I'm like we can all trade off like doing it each night if you want.
Yeah, no, you had too much other stuff on your plate.
I could have handled it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But that's a big maybe. We'll never know now because it never happened.
Yep. Nope.
It is all in the past now.
It's all in the past.
All in the past. And
yes. So what have we concluded here about what makes theater different?
I think really what makes like theater different from like watching theater in person. Watching it live in person as opposed to watching it like on stage and just watching a recording of it. For me, it comes down to two things. It comes down basically to the actors and to the audience. Those are like the big two things. In terms of the audience, like you have like on the spot, in the moment reactions, especially when the audience gets really immersed.
Mm-hmm.
Really immersed in it. It becomes this giant grand spectacle, whether you're watching an emotional tragedy that tugs on the heartstrings, or if you're trying to keep your sides from splitting from laughing too hard at a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, and on the other side of that coin, for the actors, like, it's, we thrive on the energy of the audience at times, especially when we're, like weeks into a run of a show.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like our fifth performances and we feel like we can't go on and everything like that, and we start doing stuff and the audience starts eating to it and we feed off of that energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
we're little vampires. We are.
It's like it's like photosynthesis. It's like photosynthesis of reactions. It's just like, yes, give it to us.
Yep.
And yeah, like that's kind of like that importance of like having like the live theater experience as opposed to like this, like the as opposed to like streaming like past performances or even current performances because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So with that said, I do also want to ask. Of course, like we're not going to get rid of live theater. Like, I think we basically
No.
concluded that it's a necessity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But beyond what is already like showcased right now in terms of like streaming and recorded performances, is there a sustained future for that form of consumption of theater?
I mean, it could be interesting actually to just do to continue to do staged readings
Right.
because the like stage readings over Twitch, for example, like we've gotten way more viewers for our staged readings the past couple of months as opposed to people who come out and attend a staged reading that we host in a space.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe people like the anonymity of being there and watching, or maybe I don't know. It's just a different experience, and people from other places can people from outside of town can watch as well. So there is that.
Right. So there is a chance, especially in terms of streaming live performances or live readings. That was a very loud motorcycle in the background. My goodness.
I didn't hear it at all.
I get hear pick up over my mic, but regardless, in terms of like the streaming version of that, with especially with the live readings that Voices Found Rep has been doing, it is a chance to widen the community.
Yeah.
I think the way that VFR is doing it is, I think, an example of like what should be doing. It should be to help widen the audience and help widen the community, so that when things start going back to somewhat normality, people are interested to come in more.
Yeah.
So I think that really needs to be like what like streamed theater and like recorded performances need to do. It needs to be the bait, so to speak, in order like the play is the hook, but the streams and the recorded performances need to be the bait. Now, obviously, like with VFR doing staged readings as opposed to like performances for like the broadcast, there's a bit of an advantage to that because, like, it comes down to like the work of like the people doing the readings, and we've got a lot of great people that do the stage readings. Like, it's always a blast, like going to the readings or even like participating in it.
Yeah.
Even if you're just watching, it's a fun time because you get all these reactions like from everyone. And I think people, when they're anonymous and everything like that, and they're being quiet in chat, especially since we're doing this on Twitch, where people can post in the chat with their reactions and everything like that. Like, unfortunately, with everybody doing the performance, they aren't able to react to the chat. But at the same time, it kind of brings like a closeness with the audience a little bit more, which is, I think, is kind of like one advantage it has over like watching theater live, is that while the performers are doing their thing, people in the chat can talk with each other and like share opinions and get to know one another.
Oh yeah.
So yay, we found it. We found at least one advantage with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is interesting.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there probably is a future for like stage readings, streams, and even sometimes live performance streams, like depending on the context.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think we can both agree that it should not be the norm, correct?
Yeah, it shouldn't be the norm. Theater is different for a reason.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. There's a reason why theater has been like one of the longest lasting forms of entertainment for what feels like eons.
Yeah. Well, yes, since the Greeks.
Since the dawn of the written word.
Yep.
Probably not as long as that, but even still.
Yeah. I mean, people have always been storytellers. That's
indeed. All the world's a stage.
Yep.
Many players.
Did you tune in for our? Oh, you were part of it. You were part of the reading of As You Like It.
Yeah, I was part of it for that first one where I brought. Oh my God!
You read Phoebe for us.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
Oh, that I remember when you did the drawing for it. You said, I think specifically for Phoebe, I hope it's a man, and then my name come up and you were like, oh my God, that's gonna be brilliant.
Yep. That's the fun of picking the roles out of a hat, is that people who don't usually get to read a certain kind of character get to do that because it's just fun.
Oh, especially with like live performances like that, where every single night, like they pull like a person's name out of a hat in order to do like a specific task throughout the entire show, similar to how like Mad Rogues does their Bard and Bourbon.
Oh right, yeah, Bard and Bourbon, yeah.
Yeah.
One actor takes shots throughout the night, every night.
Yeah, that's an experience that you can't get over like recordings or live and everything like that. That is an experience unto itself, and my goodness, it's hilarious. I'm still a little sad that I never got to see our good friend Thomas's drunk night.
Yep, it was pretty good.
I feel sad for missing it, but it's okay.
No.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm breathed. I'm calm. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anything to close this out, Hannah?
Not really, except just when all this craziness ends, go see live theater. It's an experience.
Yeah,
and it's a community experience, and a lot of people these days, if you'll pardon my pun, feel really isolated.
Yeah.
To go out and just be with people and see people, and you sort of become a little community when you see a show together. Yeah, it's a great experience. Go see a play.
Yeah, I think when this entire thing blows over, I think the theater community is going to get a nice little resurgence.
Oh yes.
Just because I think people want the interaction right now. Especially with like this quarantine, like for 2 months, like people have been so wound up. They've been so wound up. They want to be somewhere social. They want to be, they want to connect. But again, we're in a weird time. But once this is all over, I wholeheartedly believe like theater is going to be a great place to like reconnect with a lot of things. And honestly, I can't wait for that day to finally come.
Oh yes.
So. Yeah, go watch live performances whenever you guys can, and definitely take the time to do that. So I think that about wraps up this discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, thank you so much, guys, for listening in on this episode of the General Geekery Podcast. This has been episode 29 of the General Geekery Podcast, where we just talked about the future of theater given the times. If you guys liked what you listened to, please, by all means, make sure to follow us wherever the podcast can be listened to. We're on Spreaker. We are on Stitcher. We are on Spotify. We are wherever podcasts can be found and listened to. You can also check us out if you don't have access to any of those services. You can check out the podcast on my personal YouTube channel at Anime Rev Productions, the link of which will be in the description for this episode, as well as on our social media platforms, which you guys can find on Facebook and Twitter at Gen Geek Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. I actually
I forgot we had a Twitter. I got to post on that.
No, it's
okay.
It's perfectly okay. And you can also check us out on Instagram at General Geekery. Hannah, where can they check you out at?
Well, I can be found every Monday at 7:30 Central, rolling dice with my party on at twitch.tv/Loaded Dice Adventures. You can also listen to me geek out with my mom on the Splankniks podcast. We talk about art, literature, and tabletop gaming through the generations. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Pythian Legume.
Definitely check her out, and the misadventures of the little Kefka, who is currently in a cone.
Oh, yes. There's a hilarious video of him trying to climb up onto my bed while wearing his cone of shame. He's actually staring at me right now with the most vindictive look. He's just sitting like 3 feet away from me, just staring at me like,
just like, human, you brought this upon me. Get this
You,
cone.
human, you did this to me. But no, cat. It is for your own good.
Don't worry, Kefka. One day you shall have the cone released from thy neck.
Yes, because if you chew your butt, it'll only be worse.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
We love Kefka.
He has an impacted anal gland, which is the grossest thing to like say.
Never thought I would actually hear that out loud, but still.
You might have to censor me again.
No, don't worry. That's a medical term, so we're good.
We're good. I was so glad to be censored last time. I've never been censored before. I'm a good Catholic girl.
Fair enough. As for me, you guys can check me out at on Instagram and on Twitter at RyuzakiMK7. You guys can also check me out on twitch.tv at RyuzakiMK7 as well. I usually stream late nights on there. I'm currently doing some playthroughs of a couple of Japanese RPGs, such as Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Enjoying them a lot. Oh my god. I spend too much time playing RPGs.
Oh yeah, so do I.
Fair enough. And yeah, that's going to be it right now, guys. This has been episode 29 of the General Geekery podcast. As always, for Hannah Kubiak and Kefka in the background, who is screaming to be freed from the cone. I'm Donald Kaczynski, and until next time, you guys, always remember, stay safe out there, support your local theaters, and definitely go see a show once this is all over. But always, yes, and most importantly of all, always remember to keep your geek on.
Always.
Clink, clink. Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Later, guys.
Later.